What are you advocating for? For them to like live in the same house when they don't like each other? Like,
yes.
That's crazy.
Tim Pool has some pretty out there views on marriage and divorce, and he talked about that on his show recently. Ana Kasparian discussed Tim Pool's views on marriage and divorce. So we're going to take a look at some clips of Tim Pool. We're going to take a look at clips of Ana Kasparian talking about what Tim Pool said, and I will react to both of them.
I think she's entitled to nothing during these proceedings. And I think the problem is no-fault divorce. And I think we're not dealing with a traditional at-fault divorce. We're dealing with irreconcilable differences. And I think the real answer should have been that when problems arose, a judge told them both, STFU, you are in a marriage. It is a sacred covenant.
Tim Pool was talking about the tumultuous divorce that's taking place between Stephen and Hillary Crowder. He doesn't believe that Hillary Crowder should get a dime through this divorce process. Look, I don't want to dive into it. It is a tumultuous divorce. I feel kind of weird talking about other people's private lives, but I do want to have a broader discussion about Tim Pool's views on marriage and divorce, because I think what he's advocating for is incredibly damaging, especially for a country that has a lower rate of people who are willing to get married in the first place. Now, Pool has some advice so you don't find yourself in a situation where you might want a divorce. So let's hear him out and we'll see if he makes any sense here.
Marriage has become dating. It's dating with like strings attached in the financial world after the fact. No. Don't get married if you don't get married, okay? If you don't want to get into a position where you have to file for a divorce and hire lawyers for these reasons, then don't get married.
What Tim Pool says here is absolutely nuts. Do some people rush into marriages that they shouldn't be in? Sure. But that doesn't mean that everyone is completely irresponsible when it comes to marriage. And if they decide that they have to get divorced because they can't make it work anymore, that they've necessarily done something wrong. I would say the vast majority of people that get married are expecting it to last forever, hoping it to last forever, but all kinds of things can change. Ana Kasparian is going to get into this a bit more in depth, but sometimes people get married young and they grow apart from the person and change. Sometimes people aren't able to have children. They want to have children, but they can't, and they get divorced as a result of that. Sometimes people, sadly, will have a death of a child, and that causes them to break up. I've known people that one spouse was offered something that was their dream job, their dream career, but they'd have to move away, and the other spouse didn't want to do it, wouldn't agree to move. So the person just has to stay and not accept that dream job that they wanted because their spouse won't go along with them. There's all kinds of things that can happen in a marriage. Most people go into it wanting it to last.
The thing is, we don't really have like the magic 8-ball. Like, we don't have a way of predicting whether our marriage is going to be great. It's going to work out. Sometimes you meet someone, you date someone, you love someone, you think it's the perfect person for you. Then you get married and things can change, especially, by the way, after having kids. A lot of marriages experience some strain after having children. Their philosophy on child rearing might actually conflict. There are all sorts of issues that might arise. An individual within the marriage might end up being physically abusive. They might be emotionally or mentally abusive. You never know. It's not like people willy-nilly enter a marriage thinking, oh, it's not a big deal. I'll just get a quick divorce and it won't be a problem.
Another thing that Tim Pool isn't going to bring up and Ana Kasparian isn't going to bring up, sometimes people settle as well. You have people that, there's so much pressure from people like Tim Pool for people to get married. That's the thing that's crazy about this is people are kind of damned if they do and damned if they don't. Guys like Tim Pool would, if somebody was 30, 40 years old and not married yet, they would be criticizing them for not being married because they're not producing children. But then some people settle. They pick somebody that maybe they don't really truly love because they're afraid of being alone.
Now, obviously, life is way more complicated than that. And again, even if a couple like the Crowders, follow the traditional conservative playbook, right? They waited until they were married to have sex. They followed their, Christian values all the way into their marriage. It didn't work out. And who are we to get involved and tell them, oh, you guys hate each other. We don't agree with the reason for why you want to split up. So we're gonna force you to stay together? How is that gonna be a positive environment for children to be raised in? That is not a good situation. A household where you have two partners, two married individuals fighting each other constantly. He's challenged a little bit, and I agree with the challenging that takes place. So let's take a look at that.
So there's an interesting phenomenon here that for some reason has emerged in this particular case, where you're seeing a lot of these traditional conservatives actually come out as full-on feminist as soon as it comes to the issue of divorce.
I don't think it's feminist at all. If you want,
But it literally
if you
is.
want to incentivize traditional marriage, like you can't like put one party in a position where they get totally like ripped off in case of a divorce.
You're correct. The traditional response to how you fix marriage is divorce is not allowed.
Okay, but
There's rare circumstances where like a guy is threatening to murder and beating his wife and his kids, and infidelity is one of these things. These are people who I don't think those accusations are on the table. They're mostly just angry with each other and yelling at each other, and they're not getting along. That's where a judge comes in and says, you are grown adults. You will behave appropriately. You have children. Those children need functioning parents. You will treat this relationship properly, get therapy, and at the very least, if you don't like being around each other, you will be professional. And you chose this covenant.
What are you advocating for? For them to like live in the same house when they don't like each other? Like,
yes,
that's crazy.
And the guy that is on the show with Tim Pool is absolutely right. That's crazy. As I said before, I've known people who were in that situation. I don't understand these people like Tim Pool who somehow believe we're in a fantasy world where there are very, very rare instances in which somebody would actually need to get divorced. I mean, how many couples do you know who are in bad marriages and probably shouldn't stick together? Most people know a lot of people in situations like that. There are, lots of people that are happy with their marriages, but there's also lots who aren't. And ultimately, it's up to them. It's bizarre to me that Tim Pool and other conservatives talk so much about progressives wanting to control everybody's life through the government when Tim Pool is wanting to control people's lives through the government.
No, we get enough of the forced to be professional at work all day. Okay, we don't need to do that at home too. If you're unhappy and you can't stand your partner, again, that conflict is super toxic for the children that Tim Pool is saying he's concerned about. Look, I don't want to be like overly critical of Tim Pool here, but Tim, who hurt you, Tim?
She's right. Ana Kasparian is completely right here. These are just very strange views on marriage. This isn't how normal people view marriage. And we had a time in the United States where women basically couldn't get out of their marriages. No matter how abused or threatened they are, most normal people don't want to go back to a society like that. But what do you think? Who was right here? Do you agree with Tim Pool? Do you think Ana Kasparian is right? Is marriage something that that people should be required to stay in no matter what, except for very, very rare occasions? It can't just be that it doesn't work out for any number of reasons, not that somebody is in severe danger. Let me know in the comments, give me a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.